else that's in the audience. My name is Colleen Luby, and I'm the Senior Director of Brand Strategy and Business Insights here at Rebel Interactive Group. And I am going to take you on a journey today that's a little bit like a discovery of almost a piece of music, right? Like a symphony. So what that really means is we're going to take a look at data, and beyond just data in terms of analytics and the regular kind of small numbers that you see on the back end that maybe an analyst has given you, or someone in the data science team has passed you and said, hey, take a look at this report. It's a lot more than just the numbers, right? But it really powers your business. And so what we want to hit home today is that data is for everyone if you approach it with a question. So if you will join me, we'll chat a little bit about that. Before I get into it, I just want to say I am from Rebel Interactive Group. We are a full-service digital advertising agency located in Southington, Connecticut. We've been in business for almost 10 years. We are moving to Cheshire, Connecticut. Very excited to do that. And I'm part of the Business Intelligence and Brand Insights team over there. And this is our bread and butter. So we do a lot of strategic projects with clients, helping them understand how data is more than numbers. And it's actually clear-cut pathways for your business if you know the right questions to ask of it. So without further ado, we're going to simplify this for you. I'm sure everyone out here has heard the phrase big data. It's an absolutely massive concept. So we want to take this kind of scary term you've heard people throw around either on the internet or even one-on-one, big data this, big data that. Well, yes, data is big and there is a lot of it, but it can be broken down into smaller pieces that help us understand insights about our customer and our business. So I want to talk about what is data exactly. Data is literally everything. It is everywhere. It is omnipresent in our lives. It should be driving all of our business decisions, and you have it, even if you don't realize that you have it yet. So whether you're a business owner who has been doing their thing for 10 years, 20 years plus, or you're just starting out, you have more data than you realize. So the picture and the clear thing I want to show you today is that not only are there different types of data, but there are easy ways to tap into different levels of it and harness it in your marketing. So smart business is able to use this data available to do two different things. And the very first thing that they can do is optimize their current marketing. So whatever you're marketing right now, maybe you're having your nephew run social media posts, or you have a massive paid omnichannel program. You can use all the data at your fingertips to be able to optimize what you're currently doing, take a look and make sure the hypotheses you're assuming about your brand are correct. And then also you can forecast your audience preferences in the future. So I'm going to take you through a bit of a methodology today. It's called ESP. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but it's essentially a way to look at things that you have in front of you and make strategic decisions. But before I go there, I want to talk about data-driven marketing. So this is a marketing buzzword. I'm not typically fond of marketing buzzwords, but this one I really do like, because data-driven marketing truly is data developing your brand, content, and advertising strategies with the context of your consumer and your brand platform as it stands or aspirationally. So what this means for you is no more random acts of marketing. That's a term that I really love, because throwing a piece of social media content up there, while it seems to fill a hole and it does look like you're doing the right thing, it really is just a random social media post if there is no analysis, data, or even scheduling behind it, right? So we want to make sure that we're coming at any of our marketing efforts with an informed approach so we can be conservative with our ad dollars if paid as part of this process, but also with our time, because in this type of business, money is time, whether you're the entrepreneur or you have a large company. We want to save everyone's time so we can focus on what matters. So by targeting the correct places that our audience is going to be present, we can do that with data. And there are many different types. There are so many more than it's even on this slide, but for simplicity's sake, in this presentation, we're going to talk about data as it relates to your content. So data points can literally apply to every aspect of your business, from either your sales ROI all the way down to, keyword traffic and micro data. But for this, we're going to bucket data into three different types. So number one, that's going to be found data. So data that's found through research. This particular type of data method uses the information that is gleaned through census, maybe third-party vendors, proprietary networks, and more. This is something you can find if you're digging around out there. Maybe you have a freemium or a premium subscription to a couple of different tools. I actually, at the very end of this presentation, I have a slide with some of my favorite tools that I use, many of which are free for audience data research. So you'll be able to refer to that at the end and be able to take down some of your own notes and do some of this work on your own, most of the times for free. So we have that first bucket of data, found data. Second bucket, this is owned data. Now, owned data is data that we have, and this is the lowest hanging fruit of the business owner. So when I said earlier that it's very likely that you are sitting on a gold mine of data and you don't know it, this is what I'm talking about. It is the data that's at your fingertips, and it helps you understand your customer's behavior in practice as it currently stands. So that's going to be analytics data, marketing automation data, data you're gleaning from your organic social platforms like the back end of Facebook. It helps determine their behavior. Tells you maybe about their demographic information, and you literally don't need to pay anyone for this. You just need to have the right tools in place so that you can collect it and then ask questions. And then the third one here is first party data. So this is data that we've collected or you've collected, and this is willingly provided by your customer. Now this will typically happen through a form fill, maybe a newsletter link or a survey, or another lead magnet. So let's say you have a podcast. Someone wants to sign up for the podcast and they find a really great report that you're offering. They hear your podcast, they go to your website to download the report, and they give you your information to download that report. That is a lead magnet, and that is how a really great way to have this third bucket, so that first party data. You will see on here that there is nothing about third party data. I'm not going to get into that. It's a subject for another time, but for the sake of this conversation, let's focus on these three pieces. So now that we know that this data is out there, and that it is in existence somewhere for us to tap into, let's just go use it, right? No, it's not enough to just have data. You have to approach data with a question, because data without question is just numbers. There's nothing you can learn from something like a spreadsheet full of numbers if you don't want to approach it with a hypothesis and a plan to test what you're thinking. So now, how do we do that? If we're given a whole bunch of numbers, how do we go through and try to figure out what we should be asking and even what might be applicable to our business? And I like to call this ESP. It's a bit of a joke. You know, you don't need to have ESP to do this, but you also do if you're looking at it in this lens. So when I say ESP, I mean you need to evaluate, strategize, and then prioritize. And that last one is really important for any business owner, because we can't be everything to everyone. And depending on the size of your business, it might seem very out of reach to do some of these things, but it's not. If we can evaluate, strategize, and then prioritize these platforms, we can make strides. So that very first one is evaluate. So once you have that customer and marketplace data, and you can even be looking at your competition's information, you can evaluate that information in context. What questions can we ask ourselves with this information? That might be something like, okay, I'm looking at a Google Analytics report. What will help me understand my website traffic? Maybe I should look at which pages are bringing in the most traffic, and then also which ones are converting the most. What do those two things tell me? If I have a high trafficked page and it's converting at a high amount, this must be a good page. This must be doing what I need it to do. So then how do I go the other way and find high traffic pages that aren't converting? Is that an opportunity for some sort of improvement to get them into the high conversion, high traffic section? Those kind of questions, those kind of deep analytical questions happen in this evaluate piece. The next one down is strategize. So once you've been able to evaluate the data, you want to take a look at it and use it to build your strategy. So in the context of our conversation, which is going to rotate around content consumption and knowing your audience, this strategize section is about consumer behavior data. That's going to show us the patterns of their content consumption. And we can use this particular information to meet them literally where they are. So if we know that our audience is loyal to TikTok, we want to be there. But how do we know where they are if we don't know who they are? And we'll get into that in the next slide. And then last but not least, like I mentioned, prioritization. Budget, market itself, cash flow considerations. These all mean sometimes that you can't be everywhere that you want to, but there's no reason that you can't put data first in terms of your priority level. So if you decide that you want to use X amount of money to try to build out your marketing efforts, let's tailor this in a way that will get us data we can use at the same time. Build our own data so we can use this information to help our marketing efforts moving forward. So the very first thing I want to talk about is evaluate. And in this context, like I mentioned, we're going to be talking a lot about audience. So everything starts with the audience, right? If you know who you are and you know your consumer, you're ready to speak to them in the language that they're going to understand. So what does that mean, right? Who is your audience and why does it matter? It is well documented that peer-to-peer interaction is the most effective form of sales, specifically word of mouth advertising. People are more likely to take the recommendation of a friend over advertising by an absolutely outrageous percentage. How can we make ourselves as a brand become engendered to our consumer? And the way to do that is by being someone that they know and trust. So once you know who they are, you can speak to them in that language that they'll understand. So just in the way that you would not speak to a 35-year-old mother of two, in the same way that you'd speak to a 60-year-old finance executive in life, you won't do it online or in any of your marketing efforts, on or offline. So once you know who they are, we want to mirror their behavior, and that will bring that, that'll help them trust us and help them think, okay, this is not just a brand, this is a friend. And in that way, we become our own influencer. So speak as their peer and you're able to gain that trust. So if we can evaluate truly who they are, we can talk to them that way. Now, this is the way that we can use those different data buckets to define that audience. So you'll see this is a little bit of a copy from the slide before, and that was by design. So number one, data found through research. How can we apply data found through research to develop what we like to call an audience persona? So your ideal customer avatar. If you aren't sure where to begin, literally start at the bottom. This is getting on Google, looking up census data, checking out platform data, even using an agency partner if you're so totally unsure where to begin. You get old-fashioned research, get on Google, and start building out who you think your audience is based on literally the data points that are available to you and data points that are trustworthy. So you want to be using resources like the census, like maybe scholarly journals, maybe peer-reviewed research to determine who it is you're trying to talk to. Number two, and that was owned data that we have. Look at what we have, and in this instance, maybe analytics. That example I mentioned with the website traffic data. Use that information to determine the demographic of your audience. Are they using mobile? What pages are they coming to you from? And when they leave your website, where are they going? Use this information to build out kind of this idea of who they are as a person. Are they a mom that's in the car trying to look for something in between soccer practice? Or is it someone who's at work, active on their laptop on LinkedIn at 2 p.m. after they've had a coffee break? Who is this person? Where can we find them? And then the last one, that first party data we've collected, again, these three buckets. Utilize surveys or even lead magnet data to get down and dirty and qualitative. People should use customer surveys. If you are not surveying your customers, spin something up very quickly. It's a quick and easy way to ask tough questions to your consumers and get some real feedback, and that is fast and free. So once you've been able to put together some of these data points, you're going to tell a little bit of a story. So you tell the story of your brand, like I said, in the way that your audience is going to understand it. That is how you encourage brand evangelists and people who want to engage with you on your platforms. From there, when you've done audience analysis, then you can get into content creation. And that content creation is going to help guide the remainder of your marketing program. We're going to talk about that in the next couple of slides. This is what's called an example persona. So a persona is what you want to aim for when you are looking into your audience research, right? Using those three buckets of information to determine these things here on the right side. We can find out demographics this way. We can maybe find out job titles. And we can probably find out some of their content consumption using a couple of the tools I'm keeping at the back of the presentation. But something that's very often overlooked here are these skills here on the left. These are called soft skills, and they're behavioral-based psychographic information. And the reason that they're important is because these behavior pieces, understanding who someone is, the tone of voice they use on their own socials, their constant consumption and purchase pattern behavior will show us that they might have maybe they're overwhelmed. Are they more likely to look for escapist long form content because they're overwhelmed with taking care of their kids at home and also balancing their career? These types of soft skills will allow us to serve them content that makes them feel heard and that is interesting. So if we know that this person here, this fake audience persona, is impressionable, is a leader at her job, and also is ready to be a brand evangelist, How can we serve her content that's going to hit those 3 needs on a soft skills level while using the right side paid targeting to literally put this in front of this person as they're consuming content throughout their day? Both of these 2 things together help us flesh out who this person truly is. What do they do for work? Where are they? Are they listening to podcasts? Are they listening to TED Talks? Or are they more of an audible person? These pieces come from the research that you do and that you have at your fingertips. A couple of different examples of ways you can target your audience, just so that you know, if you do decide to go that paid media route: demographics, geo-targeting and place-based behavior, purchase history, brand-specific actions. We can find all of these things, and you can find all of these things with the right tools to be able to determine, okay, this is what I can target my audience on different digital platforms. This is interesting to know now, because as you're doing this upfront research, try to find these things out. If you have the opportunity to talk to a consumer or customer, talk to them, ask them some of these hard questions. Where do they see you first? What do they like to do? Do they lean left? Do they lean right? All of these different pieces of soft skills and psychographics are very important when you're building that persona, because you're going to track all of your marketing towards that particular person. So I want to talk briefly about a way this can kind of go wrong. So influencer marketing is the hot button subject right now. Everyone seems to want to do influencer marketing, and I understand that it's a sexy topic, but you have to step back and think, okay, this influencer, are they truly helping me achieve my goal of reaching my audience? Or am I just looking for someone and I found this person who looks like maybe they'd be a good fit? If you're stuck on influencers and you don't know where to start, think about your customer. Do you have a customer base that is easily influenced? Are they typically on TikTok or social media? Do they use social media to inform their purchase decisions? That's the big question. If the answer is yes, explore influencers. If the answer is not really or no, spend your money and time somewhere else until you have the information, the data that you need to justify a partnership with an influencer. All too often, I see people and clients that come to Rebel and they're frustrated because they've had no returns on their influencer marketing. And the reason that typically is because they haven't taken a solid look at their business need first and determine, okay, I actually have a real need for brand awareness. So I'm going to engage with an influencer who has over 100,000 followers so I can get my message out. What if they need literal actual sales? Then they need someone who's a little bit smaller of an influencer base. Mapping a program goal against overarching business goals is really clutch, but you don't know where you're going to need to appeal to if you don't understand that your audience would be influenced by this person. So this is a really small example of that. But the thinking here can be applied throughout your entire program, right? So think about your audience and determine what kind of person are they? Are they influenced? Are they likely to consume social media? Are they likely to take a train to work in the morning? Are they likely to work from home or will go to the office? Use those pieces of information to determine what tactics are correct for you. And that takes us to this next section. So this is strategy. Now that we know who our audience is, it is time to determine the best way for us to get their attention. And the way that we do that is we evaluate where they are. So we'll strategically pick out different platforms and pieces of content and weave them together in a plan for content consumption in this instance. Data will tell us where they're spending their time. And it's data that we already have in those 3 aforementioned buckets. We can literally tap into this information to be able to determine a pathway to purchase of this customer and meet them where they are. Now, this is what this is. So this is a strategic pathway to conversion. This is an example of a journey that a user may have if they want or need your product. So I'll walk you through this. And if it seems overwhelming and you think to yourself, there's no way I can be in all these places, that's okay, because we're going to prioritize in the next step. So the way that we can look at this is say, okay, I'm the customer. I am coming across your product or service for one of 2 reasons. I either need it or I want it. And if I need it, I'm searching for it. So we want to be available to find them when they're searching for us. And what we can do is do that through online blogging, organic SEO, maybe Google Ads. But if they want our product, they've had some sort of want in their life, they might have just discovered us. So now that they've seen us, they want it. It's kind of the opposite problem. So they didn't know that they needed us until they wanted us, right? So now they've discovered us through influencers, social media, programmatic, as a couple of different examples. These would be customized to your business. So as we move from that very first purchase intention, we move into the second one, which is like that assessment phase. Now the consumer is aware that your product or service exists. They're looking at ratings and reviews, word of mouth. They're talking to samples. They're looking at maybe doctors in this case. They're looking towards other influencers and partnerships. And then hopefully they're moving into that conversion phase where they will make a purchase online maybe, or they'll do a website social conversion. They'll consume your product and then they will kind of rotate around this area of influence and conversion. But in order to capture them at each of these stages, we need to make sure that we're there. So we only know where they're going to be if we know who they are, because person A, who's 17 years old and on TikTok, is consuming things differently than person B, who is 45 and exclusively reading the New York Times. So knowing who they are allows us to pick out where they're going to be and serve them content that is relatable, compelling, and different on each of these platforms. But alas, sometimes it's just too expensive. I hate to say it like that, but sometimes it is. And you can't always do everything. So then how do we battle that objection, right? What do we do when we can't do everything? We prioritize. And how do we prioritize? We use data to prioritize. Where does your business need the help the most right now? Do you need immediate short-term gains? Like, do you need that cash flow? Are you strapped right now? Do you need to focus your efforts on something that's going to give you immediate sales return? Or are you a little bit more well-established? Can you afford to do a little bit more of a brand builder approach? Can you try to look at new markets? Are you looking to expand globally? Asking these questions of your data will help you get to where you need to be. And by using data to prioritize where you need to show up for your customers, you inform your content strategy and allow you to keep pushing messaging towards the customer and elevating them down the funnel, right? Even if you're just moving a customer from the very, very tip top of your funnel down one level, that's still a success because we're able to move them forward and get them to understand and interact with the brand more than they were. So learning to prioritize. Sometimes you need to start small, and the best way to start small is finding that low-hanging fruit. So a good example of how to do this is building your data. If you don't have enough already, because a lot of businesses don't, build the data first. Start with data and continue generating organic content. How can you quickly build your data? What is a very, very, very inexpensive and quick way, an authentic way to build data? And that would be with marketing automation and CRM. As two examples. There are so many ways that you can prioritize your marketing efforts, but for sake of this example, we're going to talk a little bit about CRM, marketing automation, and organic social media. So again, this might not fit your customer. You need to know your audience, but in this example, a way to tap into more data from your audience is get a really solid marketing automation campaign going. Start communicating with your customer regularly so they expect you and they're excited to talk to you. But give them content that they need. It's not always needing to be promotional. Give them content that's relevant and timely for them. Let them know that you're here for them if they have a question about your product or service. And better yet, make sure that you continue to nurture them with your marketing automation efforts. Build a drip campaign. Take a look at your customer list and say, how can I segment this list down to make different hypotheses about my customer? Maybe I think that people that click on the learn more button in this email are going to be more likely to enjoy a holiday campaign. Let me build a segmentation for that and test it. Build and test using data for decisions. So moving to social. Posting organically on social media is something that is massive in terms of return because it is low to no cost and it has high return. And it's a really authentic way to build relationships with your consumers. So a really quick way you can do this is take a look at your customer base if you've been posting organically. Who's engaging with you? Do they have a public profile? Click into it. Take a look at the way they're talking to their friends. How are they posting about themselves? How can that information inform our ideal customer avatar? And then how can we speak to them better? How can we use the way that they're talking to their friends and family and other brands to ultimately, hopefully, leverage some paid advertising that resonates with them? And then use the analytics from paid advertising to help fine tune our customer. You'll see it's a little bit like a circle. It goes with evaluate, strategize, and prioritize, back to evaluate. And that brings us here. So evaluating your program. Now that we're back at the beginning, we hopefully have a little bit more data on our lovely data journey. What did you ask yourself when you began all of this work? Were you supposing that women were more interested in premium vodka would engage with your Instagram if you posted lifestyle photos? What was the hypothesis you had in the beginning when you looked at your numbers and said, data without question is numbers? Whichever way that you began, you did so inquisitively. So you can take all the data you learned at the end of your program. You created a persona. You decided, you figured out where they were consuming content. You decided to beef up your content on that platform that they were talking. And now you have the data. You can see that they were responding to you or they were not responding to you. How can you use that information to refine your next try? Form another hypothesis and then test it. Rinse and repeat it and use data to guide you on your journey. So as promised, here are a couple of websites and tools. Many of them are free or they're trial-based that will guide you along the way to trying to figure out those 3 buckets of data we spoke about in the beginning. The very first one is Data.io. That is the census data aggregated. It's free to use. SimilarWeb is another really great tool. That is a premium and also a free version. That allows you to go through large websites and take a look at their analytics and traffic data, as well as their competition. SparkToro is a tool we love to use at the agency. It helps crawl a digital landscape for audience conversations. And then Hotjar. Hotjar is great to watch audience behavior on your site. Where are they spending their time on your site? Are they getting stuck on a certain button? It allows you to watch the user as it interacts and tell you like, okay, they're hovering over this button for 3 seconds. What does it mean? Using all these different data points and much more, you can continue to refine that picture of your audience and then use that avatar to continue to drive and simplify your marketing forward. Also some tips, if you don't already have Google Analytics, put it on your website. If you don't know your audience base, get to know them as soon as possible. There is nothing wrong with calling up a trusted customer and asking them to answer your questions. There is nothing wrong with incentivizing a survey. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with thinking even more outside the box than that, because the more you can become your customer, the more you can get into their head, the more you understand their pains and gains and their reasons to believe in your product or service. And as soon as you know that information, you can begin to align yourself with creating solutions to their problems. And then they will begin to trust you more than they did before. And that trust generates purchase intention. So as soon as you are able to ask these questions to get yourself into their mindset, to be critical of your own advertising, to be critical of the content you've put out there, you can begin to see opportunities for improvement. And that's the most exciting thing about data, is that if you approach it with a question, you will always see more opportunity for more questions. Thank you. That is all. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate everyone's time. And if you have any questions or you'd like to chat more, we have our contact information here on the screen, and we would love to help you out, at least to get to know your audience. And if you have any questions in general about the presentation, let me know. Thank you.